I'm looking to sell my Rolex and I have no idea where to begin. Today's episode, we're going to talk about where to go, what to do, and how to hopefully get the most return. With me today, I have Adrian Taskin, our head buyer, to go through some of the details and some of the intricacies of selling your Rolex. Adrian, how's it going today?
Doing well. Just wrote up about a good 30 Rolexes prior to coming in here.
That we bought from the public, I assume?
Public, yeah.
Okay, so business is good.
Like legit 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
I was away for a good week, so there was a few things in the backlog, but yeah.
So Rolex is the biggest, baddest brand, probably has the highest turnover rate just because of how many pieces are out there in the market. More people buying and selling Rolexes than probably any other brand. I assume that's on point. Is that the thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's first, second, third, fourth, and fifth place, and there's everything else after that.
Yeah.
I mean, so generally speaking, obviously Rolex is a household name. From luxury watches, that's the first thing that people can possibly think about. More people have Rolex, more people buy Rolex, more people then therefore sell Rolex.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
That makes sense. What would be a car that is in comparison to Rolex as being the most traded? Like Honda, Toyota?
Has to be.
You know, it has to be one of them, right? There's probably more of them on the road than anything else.
I mean, I guess it depends what market you're in terms of what kind of car dealer you are. So if you're generally dealing with just mid-tier stuff and not high-end stuff, I would say, like, well, if we're talking high-end stuff, I would probably say Mercedes. Yeah. In terms of volume, right? But it's hard to compare. There's so many more car brands than there are watch brands.
That's true. I wonder if the numbers of production, like, I don't know anything about it. What do you think, like, the production rate is for, like, Mercedes? Like, how many cars do we think that they make a year?
That's a good one.
I mean, because I don't know anything about it. I mean, I'm sure we could look it up, but
I don't look. I mean, I wonder if they make more cars than Rolex makes.
That's what I. Yeah,
million?
that's
has
the
to
question.
be over a million. Has to be. Has to be over.
I mean, a million Mercedes sold per year.
I don't know. We could fact check that. Just think I'll Google, but actually fact check that.
Let me take a look at this.
Maybe 500,000. I don't know. I'll tell you this: there's more Mercedes in the showroom than there are Rolexes in their showrooms.
Yeah,
for sure.
2.5 million cars a year.
2.5
million.
Wow,
there you go.
That is significantly more. Holy
wow,
shit.
That sounds. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why I'm so surprised.
I mean, I'm surprised. So we get, well, I guess before we even get. You have a Rolex.
We need a Jamie like Rolex, like Joe Rogan has. Yo, Jamie.
Yeah, look that up.
Yo, Ian. Actually, check the number one produced car in the world.
That's our Ian. Can we just call you Jamie?
I'm gonna say it's Toyota.
It's got to be Toyota, right?
You think Toyota is the number one?
I think Toyota's number one.
Probably. You know, it's funny because I would think kind of like American cars. I would think like Ford.
For sure, Ford. Matter of fact, I have a buddy who's a car dealer, and I asked him a very, very specific question because we were kind of going back and forth watching. He asked me, he's like, what's the most lucrative brand to have if you're a watch dealer, if you're an AD? I said, well, Rolex by far, because you're getting allocated just in terms of units and how liquid they are. I was like, how about you for cars? She's like, Ford 1, 2, and 3.
Really?
Because it's not even close.
So if you could have an authorized dealership, Ford is the brand to go.
Ford is the brand to go.
Because I would think like Mercedes. I would think,
cash cow.
Porsche.
Think about how many more people can afford a Ford than a Mercedes, and most of America is looking towards the Fords, the Chevrolets.
Yeah. But I just read an article that said Mercedes is going to start reducing their number of production because they're going to increase the price of every car. So they'd rather sell more. They'd rather sell less for more because obviously it takes less labor, it takes less, manpower, and they're going to make the same margin. Instead of selling, a million cars at this price, they're going to sell 600,000 at a higher price.
Well, that's pretty much the Patek Philippe. The Richard Mille route and the Patek Philippe route, where they're trying to scale down production, from what I understand, and raise retail prices. But if you think about it, it's more beneficial for them because they'll sell their cars anyway, and their cost per unit is going to go down because if you got to do, I don't know, for 2.5 million cars they do a year, like no more GLAs, no more of those lower price point stuff because we just don't need it.
Yeah, they want to concentrate on selling more of the S-classes.
Yeah, S-class is a nice car.
It's a beautiful car. One of the first things to do when you are considering selling your Rolex, obviously, is to know what it is. What's the reference number? What's the model? What watch is it? For those that don't know, where do you find a reference number on a watch?
Well, look, if you have box and papers, it's clearly on the papers or on the warranty cards. Now, if you don't know if you don't know the reference number of your Rolex, first off, that's very rare that somebody
Mine.
doesn't know.
I don't know the reference number of mine. I know it's a GMT Master 2. I know it's a Batman.
Okay.
I know it starts with 116.
I guess maybe I see things from a different lens because I just have it all memorized in my head. But okay, generally speaking, you can find the reference number of your watch at 12 o'clock. If you pop the bracelet off, you can find it there, or a strap. It's at 12 o'clock. Yeah. It's engraved.
Which is funny because most people don't have the ability or the tools to pop it off by themselves.
Well, you go to your local jeweler. Yeah. They'll pop it off.
The papers will definitely specify it. Now, obviously, there could always be an issue with the papers being fake. The watch not matching the papers. That's always an issue. But yeah, you go to any watchmaker, they'll pop off the band and confirm that that is the reference number, aka the model of the watch.
Besides going on Google and be like, oh, what does my watch look like? Google Rolex images. Oh, I think my watch looks like that. But for all intents and purposes, yeah, it's at 12 o'clock. And the serial number of Rolexes prior to, I believe, 2006 were at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Now
it's inside the rehaul.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the serial number is unique to every watch. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's something that you should be sharing with people.
I mean, it depends. It depends on the age of the watch, right? I mean, look, there's a grace period. If you're a buyer out there, or if you're a Rolex customer, and let's say you walk into your local AD and you finally got the call, the jackpot, the lottery for a Rainbow Daytona, and you're looking to sell that watch. Yeah, you probably don't want to put that serial number out there because that's hypersensitive and because it's low in terms of production and it will get traced back most likely. But for the most part, anything over a year, I would say, look, they make 1 million watches a year, and they're coming from all corners of the globe. The Rolex market from the tip of Japan all the way to California and everything in between, the prices are pretty much the same. So there's a constant trade route going from U.S., Europe. So chances are the chances are a lot of times we get a lot of watches that, especially pre-owned, that didn't even come from America at some point. They came from Europe and they traded hands so many times.
How likely is it, or how possible is it for Rolex to find that serial number, listed publicly online? I'm trying to sell this watch. They figure out which AD it came from and they mark this person as a flipper, or they, I guess put them on the blacklist.
Well, generally speaking, and this actually goes with our processes for many years, not only Rolex, for all the watches. When we post watches with boxes and papers or without boxes and papers, we always used to black out the serial number. Yep. So it's more from the seller side, right? So if you sell your watch to X person, they know it's pretty much industry standard not to post serial numbers out there to protect the clients. Now, by doing that, you just don't put a picture of the card, or if you do, blot out the serial number.
Same thing if you're putting a picture of the dial, make sure that that
you can't see it there. There will be cases when we're trying to make an Instagram post or a story where, if it's angled in a certain way, like you can actually read it.
You pause on it and so one of the reasons that they tell you not to put any public images or anything or put the serial number, post it publicly, is because counterfeiters will actually use that serial number in their fake watches.
Very true. That is definitely a possibility.
So market is flooded with fake Rolexes. That, we just touched on that. Papers, warranty cards, boxes, packaging, receipts, service records, insurance papers, anything that you have that you could possibly use to verify that this is authentic. This either came from Rolex, or let's say it came from Luxury Bazaar. You have our receipt, you have any service records. How much does that help you, figure out whether the watch is authentic? How much does it alleviate the need to open it up, fact check everything?
Big times. Well, look, we're going back now, and I tell people this all the time. And whether this is good for our industry or not, I really don't care, because we're all about transparency here. And I'll tell you, in 1968 we put a man on the moon. Do you think it's not that hard to manufacture a Rolex card? So you can take a card and reprint it. Now, there are experts in the field, and I like to consider ourselves more or less experts. We've been doing this for a long time, and a lot of time my eye is almost trained to see certain things, but even then, so if I have any type of question, then I'll go further within my network to ensure things. certain watchmakers can take the watch apart and tell certain things about. Okay, in other words, I know somebody that used to work for a Rolex service center, and I give them the watch, and they'll be able to tell me on the spot. It's very rare that we've come across that. It's more lucratively done in heavier Rolex pieces, such as gem set pieces. I think TPG just put a very, controversial video out there. So what they'll do is a lot of these scammers, and it's very hard to tell apart. That's why you should, on watches like that and vintage pieces, buy the dealer, not the watch, right? So don't be going out there and buying a very, very heavy Daytona piece if you don't really know the guy you're getting it from, right? So buying it from guy, and this is not me trying to plug our company in, but the bottom line is we do our due diligence to the core. For instance, we got a Seiko in. A Seiko is a Daytona with an orange bezel.
I thought you actually meant like a Seiko, the brand.
No. Well,
this is a Rolex episode.
Roman probably bought a package of them, but we're not going to go there. So an orange Seiko. So it's a very rare Daytona with a sapphire bezel. Now it's very hard to do with rainbow Daytonas, by the way. They have aftermarket rainbow Daytonas out there, but the problem with that is you need to handpick very, very carefully and professionally a gradient scale of sapphires for them to match the Rolex standards. That's hard to do. But on a Seiko, where all the orange sapphires are relatively the same, and to an untrained eye you can't see, they figured out a way to essentially take the real Seiko, buy an Oyster Flex watch, a yellow gold watch, remake the dial, remake the bezel, reinscribe the serial number from the watch prior, remake the card. So the process has been done, and there are very, very small telltale signs in order for like even professionals to so
this would be considered
them.
like a Frankenstein or a Super Frankenstein.
Super Frankenstein, yeah. So we had one in.
Yeah.
Okay. So the story goes, there was a dealer that called me, actually in Miami, and I made an offer on the watch. I said, but prior to making an offer on the watch, I know that we have to be very careful with it. I need you to send it to me. So he sent it in to me. I got the watch in, and the first thing that I saw was I didn't like the way the warranty card looked. The watch looked pretty good. Okay. Like, if I wasn't paranoid or hyper vigilant, I could have passed it off for new. But now knowing that there are stuff like this on the market, so the first telltale sign was the warranty card. The print on it was off, from the AD stamp to the AD stamp and the writing on the back to the writing on the front. I saw that the font was off, and that was number one. That was the number one thing. I was like, okay, if they reprinted the card, most likely this is fake. So what I did was,
how do you perfect a $100,000 watch and not the card? Like, how do you fuck that up?
I don't know. And so then I took a real one in that we had, because we confirmed real one with real receipts and everything. And I compared it and contrasted a few different things, and how the inscription on the bezel, it was very, very close. Very close.
Man.
And I was like, oh, this is no good.
If they perfected the card, do you think you would have, done that? Taking that extra step of like comparing it to a real one, or even opening it up, or
I would have anyway, just because I've known a few people got hurt lately. So this is not this is a relatively new thing.
Yeah.
So because of that, I was like, okay, I need to do my due diligence and extra check this watch, and I was like, no, it's no good. I gave it back to the guy. I was like, don't put this out onto the market. I was like, return it back to the customer, and you got it from, and that was that.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny that the counterfeiters are trying to go after the heavy pieces, where you would think people would be a lot more vigilant, spending $100,000 rather than $30,000 on a Panda, for example.
So look, they make the counterfeiters figured out that if I make a fake Panda, okay, and it's really good, and it costs me, I don't know how much it costs them, right? And they put it out onto the market for a market price. Let's say that's a $30,000 score. If they do it to Seiko, where the watch is worth, let's say, $40,000 yellow gold Oyster Flex, and they redo it, it's now worth $250,000.
Of course, the margin is
way bigger, right? Yeah. So they may not have the time, but the watch is real. That's what people are understanding, is that the watch is not fake.
It's not a real Seiko.
It's not a real Seiko, but it's a real Rolex. Yeah. Movement and all it all matches up. So just to kind of backtrack here, or to not go too much further into this, it is extremely important to buy the dealer in these situations.
Same thing with selling.
Yeah.
If you're looking to sell your watch, you sell it to somebody that's credible, somebody that's trustworthy, somebody that has, a reputation of being a good, buyer, a good dealer in general, because you assume that having that reputation will mean that they are not going to undercut you. They're not going to treat you, wrong, or that they're going to take care of you because their reputation means more to them than a purchase of one watch or two watches.
Right. And I think it's very important for buyers of whether it's us or other stores out there, when you're buying a piece like that or inspecting a piece like that from a consumer who's sending it in, you have to relay the information that, hey, this is going to take a little bit more time. Yeah. Because generally speaking, we allow 24 to 48 hours turnaround time for payments, but on a watch like that, I can't pay you in 48 hours. I need to do extra due diligence. So you need to effectively communicate that before the watch goes in.
Yeah. So a lot of people size their watches. They take links out. Now, typically, the dealer or whoever, the watchmaker that sized your watch will give you back the links in a little bag. You keep them with the box. Having those links, not having those links, how much of a difference do you think that is as far as like what you would offer? Our research tells us that anywhere between 10 and 20% difference on the price of the watch if you're missing links.
Well, that's
obviously it depends on the watch.
That's watch dependent. So look, most of the time you're going to get missing watch. You get missing links on watches. We get all the time because simply I have a few watches. Honestly, I don't know what the hell I did with the links. If they're not in the box, I don't know what I did with them. It is what it is. So everything from a small stainless steel Jubilee link all the way upwards of a platinum, let's say Daytona link, right? It's going to vary. So so we get pictures of watches to the best that we can, and kudos to you for making the process as seamless as possible, selling to our buying software. We will. Okay, so we get pictures of the watches. We ask how many links there are, and then we make a decision. If it's short 3 links, well, here's how much the links are going to cost us on the open market. So it could vary anywhere from $150 to $3,000, right? Sometimes platinum Daytona links or platinum Day Date links are upwards of $2,000, $2,500.
Actually, just a little plug. We do have an article about how many links every Rolex model should come with.
Yep.
So read Gray Market Magazine. How would you recommend, or what would you recommend to somebody, they don't know who you are, they haven't reached out to anybody yet, but they want to try to at least get an idea of how much their watch would be worth if they were to sell it today. So you have the typical platforms.
Yeah.
Now, there are downsides to every one of these. Chrono 24, what are some of the downsides of using Chrono 24 to determine your value?
Well, we've covered this topic on multiple occasions. The pieces are inflated on Chrono 24. Not to mention, you have a lot of listings from a lot of international dealers, and there's currency fluctuations, so there's inconsistency there just because of currency. Outdated listings, like I mentioned before, and not to mention, if you don't know how much your watch is worth, like if you're not in any type of industry, like if I go to sell my car tomorrow, I don't really know. If I see a car, let's say on I don't know, what are some of the TrueCar.com, right? And I see a Mercedes up there for, let's say, $100,000. Based on our profit margin, I would think, okay, well, the dealer's probably going to pay me $90,000, but I don't know that because I don't know what markup or margin that they work on. So most people don't know what their watch is really worth. The best thing to do, I would say, would be to Facebook groups are good, and word of mouth, really referral. Most people, I would say, that have a luxury watch know somebody else has a luxury watch who knows somebody else, and word of mouth, I think, is the best way to go.
So I know like a while ago, using eBay sold listings was always a good method. I mean, pawn shops have always used it to determine what they're willing to pay for something. Do you think that's still valid? I don't know if eBay is still relevant in that sense.
Not so much, because there's a lot of hidden fees in a lot of these platforms, such as eBay and Chrono 24, 6, 7, 8%, whatever it is. You don't know if there was a negotiation that came off the table then. There was a credit card taken, if there were points shaved. So there's a lot of factors. But with like I said, with Rolex, the spread, like if you were talking about Patek Philippe, or you were talking about, like, let's say Roger Dubuis, where the margin is a lot bigger from buy to sell, that's harder to gauge. That's really hard to gauge, because if I have a Roger Dubuis up there, let's say on Chrono 24 for $50,000, maybe I'll sell it for $35,000. It's not really the case for Rolex.
I think there's a number, like, so for example, if somebody visits our website and they currently have a Rolex Daytona, let's just say, black dial, they go to our website, they see we have one for sale, we have a chart priced at $28,000. Clearly, somebody would be like, oh, cool, my watch is worth $28,000. Obviously, that's not the case.
Right.
What would be a range of, like, percentage off, that it would be? Let's assume 1-to-1, same, complete, same condition. How could somebody be like, okay, let me make sense of how much I'm actually going to be able to get for this?
That's fair. I see where you're going with this. Okay, so I think the majority of Rolex listings online from guys like us, like Bob's Watches, Joe, whoever it may be, you can shave off to get an accurate reading. And I'm going to take the big guys out of there, Rainbow Daytonas. I'm going to take them out of there. Rare vintage pieces, because there's a lot of nuances in there. But let's just say your stainless steel models, your current production stuff. I would say if you look at a listing and you say my watch is in between 20 to 25%, because you have to understand a lot of people need to inflate their prices a little bit online to leave room for negotiation, to leave room for a trade, to leave room for a credit card, and to pretty much kind of just mirror what everybody else is listing. That being said, I think it's within 20 to 25%. And people also have to realize that, look, we have a business to run. A lot of these online guys have a business to run. The intake process, me sending you a label, insuring the watch, taking it in intake, taking pictures of it, polishing it, testing it, paying people to do all of that. It's
if you just
expensive.
think of just the credit card fees, or just money transfer fees themselves are approximately 3%. Just a shipping label is over $100 because it's insured. I mean, again, people think, oh, shipping, I'm going to send this via USPS. It'll cost me $8 for priority shipping. That's not the case. I mean, people need to kind of realize and I guess adjust their expectations of why these costs are so different. So I just want to make it clear why, sure, there has to be a profit margin. We're a business. We're not a nonprofit. We want to make money, but our profit margins are not 20, 25%. Our costs to facilitate this purchase could be between 15 and 18, 20%, depending on the watch, depending on where you're located, everything else. Obviously,
which a lot of people don't care about, which I totally understand. Like I don't want, if I was to do a business with somebody, like, I can see how people like, I don't want to hear your sob story. Your business and your expenses really aren't my problem. Just so I want to get a fair price for my watch, right? So we make it a point to be as fair as we possibly can for both sides to win, right? And I think people a lot of times send us things because, first off, they trust us. Second of all, they understand that we're a business that's been around for 22 years and has been through a lot of ebbs and flows in the market, and is still around. We kind of know what we're doing. We're growing, and people see it right in front of their eyes, and they want to do business with us.
Of course.
But most importantly, I think our process is the easiest. From offer to whether it's accepted or not, to shipping label to payment. It's a very, very short time frame.
So we previously talked about like you were at the show and it was like, how are dealers holding up, and we talked about the fact that they don't have this massive overhead. All they have to do is make a couple of, bucks on a watch and, they can stay competitive.
Right.
As far as small dealers like that don't have the massive overhead, buying from the public, yes, they could possibly pay more because they don't have all of these costs. But at the same time, it's, selling it to somebody that doesn't have the power that we have has its risks as well. Like,
you hit the nail on the head there. That was my last topic I was going to cover. So guys like ourselves, people, and they've told me this before as well. On the buy and sell side, what recourse do I have? They know that they have recourse with us in case something were to happen. A lot of these fly-by-night dealers, they don't have access to the public, and that's the bottom line. In order to gain access to the public, it's going to cost you. And if it's going to cost you, therefore you're not a backpack dealer. You're just running in between different dealers and making deals, which is fine, totally fine. And I get it. Sometimes I wish I was doing it because it's hard to maintain the ship. And that goes on the sell side as well. Like, some people are willing to pay a little bit more of a premium because they know who they're getting it from. They know where the watch has been. They know that the watch was serviced. They know that they have recourse. They know that they have warranty. And they're protected. People pay for protection. That's the bottom line.
If you think about it, there isn't a single dealer out there. There isn't a single company out there that will pay you before receiving the watch.
Well, why would
nobody? So if you are a smaller dealer that does not have the overhead, which could mean you're in your parents' basement, or it could mean you're in your office, how would an end user, how would a customer feel comfortable sending their watch to somebody like that, without having, like you said, any recourse? Without, here, I'm going to mail you my watch. I have no money. I have no guarantee that you're going to pay me. You're not in business for 22 years. You don't have this, big operation that's currently, that's visible online where I know you, I can find you. It's risky. So yes, you might get a few extra bucks, but there's an opportunity you're not getting anything.
Most of the time, people are not willing to take on that risk. And like, again, nowadays they don't have access, like fly-by-night dealers, they don't really have access to the public. They may get watches from people they know, friends, or somebody they met at a bar or a club. Hey, I'm X dealer, I deal in Rolexes, right? Okay, you have a Rolex, cool, come find me, type of thing. But the moment you have exposure to the public, means you have expenses.
100%.
And then if you want to compete more with more guys like ourselves, you're going to require more expensive. You're going to require more marketing. You're going to require
100%.
more money, more shipping, more insurances. Our shipping rates are better. Our insurance rates are better because of the scale that we do it to.
So there's only a couple of players in the market that are of the same size as us and can have the same purchasing power. Obviously, as a self-promotional plug, I do think that we are the easiest to work with. We're probably the most competitive, and us. Like you can literally see your watch on YouTube being received and being unboxed, and where that doesn't happen with some of the other players on there. There's a benefit.
Like, saw my watch come in, because when we do the unboxing, it happens all the time.
Yeah. So I have some questions that we've put together based on some of the searches that people are looking for. First one is super easy to answer.
Yep.
Where is the best place to sell a Rolex?
Sell.luxurybazaar.com.
There you go.
By far. And then number 2 is Luxury Bazaar, at Luxury Bazaar Official, at Roman Sharf, at Adrian Taskin, at Marco of LB, and so on and so forth.
I think that and again, the system that we bought technologically, it's definitely much easier to work with. So a lot of places don't have this sort of system that allows you to communicate directly with your buyer, upload everything, sign an agreement right there and then. It makes it super easy.
We actually, funny story happened, sorry to cut you off, before we walked in here. Actually, and it was a Rolex a guy wanted to sell. He wanted to sell a rose gold rhodium dial Sky Dweller. Yesterday I had Marco. I kind of put him in timeout. I put Marco in timeout a lot, and it's not for a lack of anything he did wrong, but we make it a point in our CRM software to input certain data, which he likes to leave for last minute because he's constantly busy. He's buying, selling, trading. He's on YouTube. He's doing all these things. He's doing all the right things. But I said, Marco, slow down.
Yeah.
I need you today to focus on inputting these things. By him doing that, we didn't answer a guy for 6 hours.
Oh.
He sent in a request, and 6 hours later, the guy was like, I would appreciate a response.
Wow. That's rough, yeah. Dude.
Therefore, we're literally glued day and night to, as soon as that offer request comes in, we want to make sure. Now we're getting to the point where so many requests are coming in, we're trying to scale our buying team.
I mean, look, it's just talking about this, generally, it's like, oh, well, you got a lot going on, 6 hours. But think about it from the end user's, perspective.
I get it.
Like, I just put in a request. I'm trying to sell you a $50,000, $60,000 watch. Like, where the fuck are you?
Well, I made a point. It's like, Marco, unfortunately, a couple of our guys may be a little bit upset with us, but we need to do this, right? Because the idea of answering so quickly is because most of the time when people sell anything, they have multiple screens and windows open at the same time, right? So there's nothing special about what we do because our competition is so fierce. There's a lot. Every watch dealer buys Rolexes.
Everybody. Yeah, we're just
it's tough. It's tough.
Again, random individual has a Rolex. What would you recommend as like the best way for them to at least get an idea of what it could be worth? Is it just using that formula you just said? Look on our website, take 20-25% off.
Most, like I said, for current modern stuff, because otherwise, a lot of people may even have vintage is a whole. Vintage is a
you can't even get into that.
It's a whole other category, man. Because the same watch with a different dial can be a matter of 2x the price, 3x, or whatever the case may be. So a general rule of thumb, I would say, is to kind of get a baseline of, if you take this back row, right, you'll see. Okay, so Chrono 24 is a good one because you can actually filter by location, you can filter by box papers and year, right? So if this is a 2020 back row, you can filter that out and you'll see a bunch of listings, right? It really isn't going to be that much of a spread. Take the lowest listing and subtract that by 20%. I think that's like a fair gauge. Not saying somebody's going to pay you that, but I think you'd be pretty accurate. Okay.
Now, is it worth to sell your Rolex? Now, I know that's a very subjective
loaded question.
Very subjective question. I mean, because
loaded question.
Is it worth it? That's up to you. But take time out of the equation. Right now, tomorrow, yesterday, last year, what makes selling your Rolex, worth it? I mean, obviously, some people will do it just because they need the money.
I would say, okay, look, I would say that the majority of Rolexes, believe it or not, that we have that come in are in trades. So again, watches have become a financial vehicle, and we've seen this time and time again over the past couple of years especially. So it's just, it serves as a vehicle to get into the next piece, either upgrade or downgrade. You know, sometimes some people want to consolidate. They'll sell something more expensive to get something cheaper just to still have. There's so many variables as to why people sell.
Actually, I mean, one of the things I'm thinking about right now, so one of our brand partners, Wax, actually offers a loan program.
Right.
If you need the money, but you don't want to lose your watch, like you don't want to sell your watch, you can actually borrow money against it while your watch still, you know, hopefully appreciates given whatever, you know, market it's in. That's an option. But I assume a lot of people, if they're selling because they need access to money. Otherwise, trading it up, you know, makes the most sense.
Yep,
I mean, you're getting value that you didn't have a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago for the watch, hopefully.
Generally speaking, you get more value in trade than you do straight sale.
Same with cars.
Exactly. Generally speaking.
How can I sell my watch, my Rolex, without papers?
Same as you can sell without papers. You just have to understand that the obviously the price of the watch is going to be less. Look, if it's an old, you know, 1603, which is an old two-tone Datejust, if it had papers or it didn't, the price is very, very small margin-wise. If you have a Rainbow Daytona without papers, that's a humongous difference.
Here's a question, and I don't know the answer to this, so hopefully you do. If I have a watch that has no papers, but I send it to Rolex to service, will it come back with a service record or a service card?
It will come back with a service card, correct.
Would that actually be worth it to do?
Again, it's watch dependent. Most of the 100% of the time, yes.
Okay.
100% of the time, yes.
I guess it depends how much you're paying for service.
Yeah, because I will pay more of a premium for a watch with no papers that has a service card. And again, it depends when the watch was serviced. So if you bring me a watch with a service card that was serviced in the past 2 years, that's pretty new. I'm confident that the watch is okay, right? Not stolen or whatever have you. Rolex has it in their system. They ran everything, and I know that Rolex didn't tamper with it in any type of way. It came with this card. So yeah, I will pay the premium versus having to go send it out myself, because sending it out myself requires time, effort, and money.
Yeah, so certain brands allow you to get what are called archive papers. What is that?
So Rolex doesn't provide archive papers.
Now, what does that actually mean? Archive papers, like I know, like, you know, AP, Patek.
Yeah. So well, look, you have to understand that. I would say because of how many units Rolex produces year in and year out, and how long they've been in business, it's very hard to archive things, because think about how large that database is. With Patek Philippe or Richard Mille or Audemars Piguet, it's a much smaller. First off, they're private companies, and their system is more modern, I would say, than the Rolex system. So Rolex doesn't provide archives, Patek Philippe does. I believe if the watch is 5 years or older, so essentially what archives does is almost serves as a insurance certificate saying, hey, this watch was originally purchased on this date. We're stating that it is original, yada, yada, yada. Now, and most of the time, it will actually tell you that the watch is not stolen.
Yeah. How cool would it be if Rolex introduces papers as an NFT, which can be owned, transferred? You know, that would be awesome.
It could. That's a very, very intricate system. That's a lot of different NFTs going, and a lot. You know what the problem with that? What I find the problem is the reason that the Rolex secondary market is so successful is because of the volatility. I'm sorry, not the volatility. The velocity and speed of how it's transmitted all over the world. So for me to actually have to sit there, it's the same thing with a car and a title. This is why the watch market is so good. If I sell you a car, there's a process. There's a title transfer. There's this transfer. It takes time, right? NFT, yeah, maybe it's a little bit quicker, but most people don't want to do that yet, right? Watches, I have a $5 million package that can be sold to a guy in Hong Kong, and it'll be there in 3 days. I don't have to, no title work, no paperwork, no NFTs. So
you mentioned transfership of title.
Yeah.
When I purchase somebody's Rolex, or if we buy and sell somebody's Rolex, there isn't an actual transfer of ownership.
Correct.
You know, so you're getting a watch with a card named under somebody else.
Yes. Well, not anymore. Well, okay, so before, when Rolex started making warranty cards and papers, you had the name of the dealer, where it came from, and then you had your name.
Yeah.
The new style warranty cards no longer have that.
Okay.
Which is actually one of the reasons that kind of propelled the Rolex market because of how easy and safe it was to sell your watch, because now, hey, my name's not on there anymore. The dealer I got it from anymore. Now I have no idea where the watches came from. From before, it was all right there.
Yeah, I always wondered, like, so I'm going to, like, if I buy a used watch, I'm going to buy a watch with somebody else's name on it. I never actually, like, sure, you own it, but your name is never going to be on there. What do you think is, like, a good range for a Rolex to be considered vintage? Like years range.
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
Like 20 years ago would be like, you know, or is that neo-vintage?
No. Yeah, more or less neo-vintage. Rolex is a good one because if you take different brands, you kind of have to make a timeline of how long that brand has been around to really gauge what vintage is. But I would say for Rolex, based on when they started and where they're at today, I would say, like, some people would consider, let's say, an early like Zenith Daytona to be vintage. I don't. I believe like I'm gonna say 30 plus years.
Okay.
30 plus range for me, I think. I think at this point, like an 88 watch is vintage to me at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picturing, like, you know, an 88, you know, flimsy, date just, you know.
Yes. Sometimes it's dial specific, sometimes even bezel specific, sometimes it's crystal specific. There's a lot of factors, but I would say let's call it 35 years plus.
And for the most loaded question today, is today a good time to sell your Rolex? You know, this is a tough one because, again, when you look at real estate, rates are high, people are buying less houses. Is it a good time to sell? You know, it's questionable.
Hey man, I've you know, being the head buyer here and being literally responsible for every dollar that goes in and out on a daily basis, I wish I had the answer to that, because then mistakes wouldn't happen. You know, for all the good that comes with the bad. So I wish I could time that. You know, but
I'm trying to think of, like, the pros and cons of, like, so market clearly slowed down. You know, prices of certain models. You know,
I'll say this. I'm gonna make a very specific point right now. It's actually a very specific topic. If you are a guy that has a Rolex or lady, and I think that have had your eye out for Patek Philippe lately, now is a good time to sell your Rolex, because Patek Philippe, they recently announced, it's kind of a little hush hush, that they're kind of going the AP boutique route where they're closing down ADs and they're consolidating into boutiques. I've seen a crazy spike in Patek prices over the past month. Wow. Not to mention the opening of China back to Hong Kong. There was a trade show over there. I think things are going to start getting rolling. They're not going to be where they were, you know, early 22, late 2021, but I am starting to see an uptick. So right now would be a good time if you're looking to
trade up,
or to liquidate and wait for whatever Patek Philippe that you had your eye on. So it's a very specific scenario, right?
I'm trying to think. So if I would sell my watch today, it would be for one reason. It would be because I want to take the money that's invested into that and put it into a different investment that has much more potential. If I'm looking at it strictly as an investment, you know, I wear my watch every day. I love it. It's great. But if I had watches that were just sitting in my safe that were purchased as an investment with the hopes that they increase in value, I would sell them to put that into something that 5 years from now has much bigger potential, like the stock market or, you know, other things that, you know, could grow at a much faster rate. Yeah, that would be a reason.
I think most people that started selling. So we saw in, I would say, Q2 of 2022, when things started to go downhill, the biggest surge of people selling their watches. And then by them selling their watches, Rolex is obviously number one. So there were so many, I didn't know how to handle it. There were so many things coming in because uncertainty, and people wanted to send in cash. And they didn't want, they saw that a lot of people bought watches at the time at market value, and it ended up being high because prices started to come down. So a lot of people liquidated their stuff to stop the bleeding, essentially, right?
To catch it before it reaches the bottom. Yeah.
And nobody knows what that bottom is. So a lot of times we're very emotional in our approach for everything, right? Yeah. We're not really analytical to see that, hey, it's going to go down, it's going to go up again. So people get like spooked and they want to sell off right away.
It's funny because if you think about it, so sure, you know, houses you live in and your whole livelihood is in there. But if you were to do that with a house, oh crap, real estate market is dropping, let's get out of this house. You know, that doesn't make sense. So how does it, like, you're going to wait it out, just like you have the last 5 times market went up and down.
Goes back to like if you're in a rush, if your personal house right now, if you're in a rush to sell it, you're not going to sell it tomorrow.
Correct.
And literally the only way somebody will put in an offer tomorroa is if it's a deal that they just can't refuse. Like, that's so cheap. I'm making an offer.
You don't want to do that.
Cash offer, no banks, no mortgages, no nothing. But with like I said, going back to watches, it's the most like physically liquid asset out there, luxury asset out there, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else that people should know when they're considering selling their Rolex?
If you're sending it in, okay, so I would say that to avoid any type of unwanted or unneeded risk, if you're even if working with us, because we want to make sure everybody's comfortable, if you send in a request and we make an offer and you accept it and you're not comfortable for whatever reason because you think you're talking to some type of robot or somebody in I don't know, India somewhere or in Italy, whatever the case may be, call in, ask for a FaceTime.
Yeah, we
say,
actually
hey,
allow
Marco,
people to schedule the Zoom
hey,
calls.
Marco, I just submitted a request. You made an offer. We confirmed the deal. I just got a label. I just want to make sure it's you. Can you FaceTime me? Today, the technology we have, you shouldn't be making these mistakes. It's too easy to verify nowadays.
It's true. I mean, with the technology today, it's so easy to get, conned. Yeah. But it's so easy to also verify who's
and we encourage
else.
it. Call in and verify that that it's us, because there's people out there that are faking phone numbers and
faking
like
Instagram accounts.
Faking Instagram accounts on WhatsApp. You'll see like a picture of me with a completely different number. Well, most people don't know what a 215 Philly number is, right? They're like, oh, I'm sending Adrian a watch. No, FaceTime call me. Yeah. I had a guy who sent in just not too long ago, 2 weeks ago, a yellow gold day date. Called me on Instagram, submitted an offer request. We made an offer via Instagram and offer request. He confirmed, and he's like, I just want to make sure it's you. He called in, we FaceTime, watch us here the next
That
time.
actually makes a lot more sense than just relying, yes, the technology is good, but all of it could be faked.
All of it can be fake. FaceTime. Can't fake this pretty face,
And I guess the last point of it is that if you don't get a response within 6 hours, send a message.
If you guys look, if you don't get a response and you're, I guess, I don't know. I look, when I send emails to people, I get it. Like, what if I don't get a response? Like, at the time that I want to get a response, I start to get agitated. I start to get angry. Therefore, I try to do my best to ensure that doesn't happen. I'm sure doing this podcast, there's probably 12 to 15 angry people with me right now. But call in. You have to understand that we have a system. We have a few people working on a system that gets hundreds of requests a day, hundreds of requests here. You should see the leads that are coming in. So if you don't get an answer right away, call in. Call in or text or Instagram, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's the best advice, actually. I mean, as modern as we are, a phone call is, it beats it all.
Always.
Adrian, thank you so much for joining me today and helping clear
Thank you for having me. I haven't been here in a while. There's been a lot of us gray marketers through. I've been watching all the podcasts. I'm like, damn, I'm due.
Well, we'll have you back on soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Have a great week. Take care.